I loved being at university, however the culture was. I mean, I came to New Zealand, which someone said to me, well, that's going to be academic suicide. What do you want to go there for? And, I said, well, it's a good way of life. I want the culture. Oh, I suppose so, yeah. Do you see our goals are not easily quantifiable necessarily in terms of data, wealth data? We can't put a cash on things. We can't put a cash on some of our resources. Some people have the most incredible hope and expectation and drive. Some people are revolutionary. Some people are incredibly academically conformist. You can't measure it. You can try, and jolly good. I mean, as far as you succeed, well, that's just good on you. That's good. But there's so much in life that is, well, in religious terms we'd say that is not materialistic and yet terribly important to us. It's said when you die, isn't it? It's not that you're wishing you'd worked harder in your life. You say, where are the kids? Where are the grandchildren? Where's my son? Will he come and visit me? Do you see? That's what really matters to you. You can't quantify it. You can't measure it. But it's of paramount importance to you. And you might be the most successful businessman or academic, and wife leaves you and you're just desperate. Your life collapses, all meaning's gone out of it. You're used to doing it to love and care for this person, and suddenly they're gone. And the desolation is unbearable. You can't measure it. You just know it's killing you. Right, enough of that. That's not helping in this discourse. Illustrative, that's all I can say. To return then to my doctoral thesis, how do you make decisions in uncertainty situations? Well, how do people make decisions might be some guidance as to how we can best optimize and make decisions in uncertainty. In the investment world, 19th century foreign investment, they seemed to play safe. They didn't seem to be maximising profit particularly. They seemed to be lending to foreign governments that they could rely on repaying, probably through pressure of the military or something in the ultimately, but in some sense governments that were reliable to us would repay and so forth. Obviously, when we moved into the 20th century, we got that wrong. You might have had oil refineries in North Africa that were suddenly locally nationalised overnight, and that was a mistake. And you put refineries in your own country from then on, not in the source, because you could lose your refineries and your investment if you put them in the country where you're getting the oil from. We learn by our mistakes, do we? We play safe. We're trying to optimize, avoid certain uncertainties. Not market uncertainties in this case, but political uncertainties, unknown futures. Do you see, even in the economic theory sense, you quickly get into explanations that are outside the scope of your data. I worked for Rothschild's merchant bankers in London at one point. I mean, in most extreme junior capacity, I was just a boy in the office, during holiday times while I was at university. Instead of going home to mum and dad, which didn't exist because they'd broken up, I went and worked somewhere. And Rothschilds were very good to me. They gave me this opportunity. And it was an eye-opener too. You realise that the way the city works is not the way you think markets work. There is competition, yes, but it's competition for inside knowledge and understanding, influence and power. And you have a job mapping that from an economic model point of view, I can tell you. And I wouldn't presume to do so, it'd be nonsense. You realise that there are some very significant players in the market, and it's because they have information that other people do not have. And the last thing that anyone wants is competition, of course. I mean, the economists realise this, that it's only the consumer that might wistfully long for competition. The producer desperately is trying to find some monopolistic power to help raise his profits above the meagre level that is considered normal return in an industry or in investment generally. So I learned too that probabilistic information was dependent entirely upon how much data you're not privy to. The more information you know, obviously, the more accurate is your probability distribution of the outcome of a decision. And that measure of what you know and what you don't know, all you know is you might have moved in the right direction, you've got more information. You really don't know how much that's improved the probability, because the unknown part of the problem is still unknown, where you've no data on probability, or past experience is very tenuously related to the present situation. Every situation is unique in some sense, and the more unique it is, the less data you have for some probability estimation. And even then you don't know what weight to give to the probability distribution vis-a-vis that part of the problem that's unknown. You might be working out the probability of picking up a black marble out of a mixture of black and white ones, and the unknown bit in the equation is that you're not sure whether someone hasn't rigged it and taken all the black ones out. There is a possibility that there's some information you haven't got here, or that they're big surprise. There's green ones in there too. Oh, that's altered it. Where did they come from? I didn't expect them to be there, and that's changed the significance of the probability distribution you have between black and white ones, because you could actually pull out a green one which you hadn't bargained for at all. Something like that. But you can see the complication. You can make up scenarios that are illustrative of the importance of the unknown, and you just can't put a weighting on it. You don't know what it is. It's unknown by definition. So a person with information has a much more useful probability distribution of the outcome of an investment than a person who does not have. Someone who's in close contact with the markets has a very good idea if exchange rates are really going to survive until tomorrow morning or not, and we overbuy and oversell on a currency accordingly. You may have literally inside information that says the government's not going to reconsider this until July or something, And similarly with, you might have inside information on a certain CEO is thinking of retirement, and you think, oh, that's interesting. Does he want to jump the sinking ship? Perhaps we should be a bit cautious with our investment in that particular area, and so forth, you see. You can't quantify these things. I don't think you can anyway. That's my limited experience, if you like. Now when it comes to labour, our resources Well, it's not just our labour, is it? You've got a happy workforce, it works far better for you than an unhappy one. Same number of people, same number of employees. You're going to pay them the same? Probably not. You're going to lose those good ones to somewhere else. And when they get there, they may find it's not such a happy environment. They're nothing like as productive as they were in the old place. There's all these unknowns, you see. All these unknowns. What are our resources as labour? Our state of mind? You know, the typical advert tries to say we only go for the best if you're the best, and you know you're meant to address your mind to being the best for them. And yeah, I can remember the chap at Rothschild's, this partner. He looks at me and he's presumably one of the family, I can't remember now, or related, and he says to me now, "Are you ambitious?" Well, of course I wasn't. Not in that way. I wasn't ambitious to make money. I mean, Dad had made plenty anyway, and I was going to be quite well off enough not to have to worry too much about it. And anyway, I'd got an academic background, and I was loving that, and I knew that would earn me a good income anyway. And but I looked at him straight in the eye and said, "Yes, sir." And of course, you just knew that was the answer he needed, because he could control and manipulate a man that can be bought, and I've got lots of money. You know, not a problem. And I may have done him an injustice in seeing him in that way. He may have been being very paternalistic. You know, some of these guys are. Materialistic they may be, but very paternalistic. And they see a young man and they think, he could be good. I think we could invest in him. And they mean it in a good way as well as a self-interest way. They mean it paternally. I mean, they are who they are, but they do mean well. Well, that's my hope anyway. And I think I found it to be true. I've found saints in every walk of life, not just every church, not just every religion. I've found them in science and the academic world. I don't mean the academic world's completely without religion. I mean, depends where you are, I guess. Don't know, it is largely though, isn't it? You know, I used to say at the University at Essex, I used to say that, and here in New Zealand I used to say that, don't choose subject. Once you know your lecturers, choose the ones you gel with. Even if they're not doing the subject that you're particularly interested in at the minute, you will be interested if it's the right lecturer. I mean, I could inspire interest in economic history just because I was so sold on it. And I did inspire, I just know it. You know, it was interesting, it was vital, you could understand modern situation in the world. It was practical in a way. And students needed the practical. I mean, they're impressed with, you know, models that work and so on, mathematics and theory, no question of it, and I was too. But to know also that you could understand what was going on in the real world, or at least feel you could understand it. Yeah, they just go away inspired. I didn't really feel that I taught at all. I just tried to inspire. And it was such a joy. Such a joy. Loved lecturing. Loved teaching. I taught a lot in schools. You know, yes, what's called sixth form in England, and people in the sort of age range of, I don't know, 16 to 18, isn't it? 19 perhaps, that age range. Ones that have chosen the subject and just think, God, this is the way I want to go. It's tripping. Hey, I think I've got it. I've touched on it there. Do you see the importance of inspiration? You can be in the most academically sound place, but they're not inspiring you. You can have, on the other hand, teachers who, I remember one chap, Norman, he obviously was not one of the brilliant ones in the department, but he could teach. And he could teach because he found the subject difficult when he first came to it. And he knew the problems you were facing. I mean, we had another guy from another department, professor of computing, and I don't know why he was doing it. He was teaching us first year computing. Well, he was way above our heads. There's no way we could relate to him. No, I mean, what he took for granted was not true. We couldn't speak his language, even though he was doing the trivial as he understood it, you know. Whereas my friend Norman, he became such a friend. Such a friend. I lost him a bit when I became Christian. He was just appalled, poor chap. Because he'd had a Christian background, parents, and, I don't know, his dad had died because of not having medical treatment due to their religious beliefs, on a boil that he had on his back, and he died of it. And I mean, my friend Norman, he couldn't reconcile himself, I think, to me becoming Christian. But he was a great chap. Wonderful blessing to me he was. We even did weightlifting together. Yeah. You can be such a blessing in education to people that value you and you value, and you just think, wow, it's a joy to be here. Do you see the returns that my dad could never understand? He had a teacher friend, and he says to him, look, I can earn, to his friend he'd say, 4 or 5 times what you earn. It's ridiculous. Why do you waste your time teaching? It was beyond my dad. I mean, a man of great integrity, 0 religious interest, of course, well, minus by a great number, actually. Just couldn't see it. You can be blind to things you can't measure. That's not a great wisdom, is it? But I think you get the Jesus thing. Those that have ears to hear, let them hear. What is the ultimate of inspiration? Mankind's ultimate inspiration has been their religions. Well, it's the official ultimate anyway. From a secular point of view, you can look at the religions, or from an alien point of view, and think those religions haven't gotten very far. Not sure what the world would have been like without religion. I think I actually believe now that it would never have advanced like it has. I think religions have been an integral part of the culture. This has been an integral part of the way the world has finally come. And you could say, yeah, well, the prosperity was really because of the Western world. But you know, there were civilizations in the past that were very prosperous. I don't know how happy or unhappy they were. But you know, we don't score terribly high on happiness. And I guess you do know that from your own life. So I won't labour the point. But, yeah. It's said in at least 2 of the major religions, Christianity and Hinduism, that 1 in 1,000 Sikhs. And, well, few of those actually find that it's, in the Hindu understanding, a very long process. You need millions of lives to get there. And the Buddhist view is that too. The Christian view is it's a one-off chance, and you're all damned if you don't make it, which I thought didn't give too much credit to God, and or in fact seemed consistent with an all-powerful God that loves his creation. And why wouldn't you love what you had made? There are a few questions with me. I didn't swallow Christianity easily. Which is not surprising coming from an Essex background, isn't it? But even so, it was at Essex University I came to know God. And I've overstated it there. I'll tell you what happened. I was extremely happy. It was springtime. I'd lost someone that I loved, or rather I'd surrendered in my mind that they loved someone else, and that to love them was to give them their freedom, not to try and chain them into being with me. And I was flying. I knew I loved them for real. I wanted their true welfare, even more than my own. That's not quite true, of course, because to tie someone to you who doesn't love you and loves someone else is a nonsense, isn't it? That's not going to make you happy. So it wasn't pure selflessness at all. It was realizing the inevitable, but realizing too that I was able to make, well, what I really understood to be a noble decision. Lovely. You love her, you let her go to the one she loves. That's what she's going to need. And I've had the joy of knowing her. And I wanted God to exist. Not because of some desolation. I didn't feel that. I was in a state of joy. I'm in love. I can't have the person I love, but I can have her welfare, and that's what I want. I've got her welfare. I've left her to the one she loves. Great. Well, I guess something had happened to me that I was not aware of. I was just aware of the fact that suddenly I wanted God to exist, to thank him for being in such a state of joy and happiness and peace of mind. The joy and the peace that I was very clear on, that's what I had. The wanting God to exist was I wanted to thank him, wanted to thank the world, the universe, for this joy and state that I was enjoying. I was high. I realized I want God to exist, to thank him for just being, for this happiness. And I thought, that's funny. I've never wanted God to exist before. How could this happen to you, Marshall? What's happened to you? You want God to exist? You had every explanation from school upwards as to why God did not exist. I mean, you weren't anti-religious people, but you certainly knew that was not the way to go. And I was on a high. I was already on a high, of course, but now I just went through the ceiling. I was beginning to feel the presence of God, whether he existed or not. Now that sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it, if ever there was one? But I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I realized I wanted God to exist. And that faith was not to do with proof, but to do with hope. I would like God to exist in the way that I understand him, namely as the one who's affording me this opportunity of being so happy and in such joy. You see, this is not some normal Christian understanding of conversion where you're so desperate in life and so upset that you turn desperately to God and he's the way out. You know, it's not that. And I don't mean I want to hold that in contempt. I'm just saying that my conversion seems so unusual, so unexpected. It said he comes like a thief in the night, and you think that has a bad connotation. It's just to explain that suddenly it's upon you, and it comes from nowhere, and you're stolen away from the world that you are in, into a world that's not familiar, but wonderful. It's springtime, and it was springtime. It was the most lovely springtime, and I had the university campus to enjoy. And the original house that was on the property before the university was built, called Wivenhoe House, and it was just available. I mean, you could buy a cup of tea there and a cheese roll or something, and you could sit upstairs in the rooms that were just like lounges, and nobody did. I mean, I was as often as not completely on my own in the room, looking out over the campus grounds, the lakes and the gardens and so on. All of them kept for Marshall to enjoy. I realised I was in this lovely stately home. These beautiful grounds being kept, I didn't have to lift a finger to keep them nice. Lakes, nature, springtime. I was in love. I was happy. I knew in my heart I'd done the right thing. I was writing poetry. I'd never written poetry before. I thought, whoa, something's happened to you, Marshall. I was reading a book by a Hindu guy. Someone gave me a book, Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda. First Indian to settle in the West in Los Angeles and stay there the rest of his life. And it wasn't an autobiography really, it was more an account of all the amazing people he'd known in his life and deliberately tracked down, including of course his guru and so forth. And I wistfully thought, well, if I had a guru, it wouldn't be an Indian, it would be Jesus. That's the culture I live in, but I don't think that's my path anyway. But I was interested to read, and of course I found his book profound. I found him fascinating, even his picture bewilderingly fascinating on the front cover. So, in contemptuous secular terms, you could say, oh, well, he was clearly bewitched by reading this book. Well, you might be right. But it didn't result in me being Hindu or religious or Christian. Well, not then anyway. It resulted in a future that brought me to such, but that was a long story. And you can follow that elsewhere. Sorry, should you be at least be interested? Perhaps you are. So, what I'm saying is from the research point of view, and it wasn't any formal research, was it? Research was, well, it was a research, of course. Youth is always looking for understanding and answers, isn't it? If it isn't, it's died, poor souls. You've got the high rate of suicide that we have here in New Zealand among our youth. It's frightening, terrible. Let's not go there. Hey, we've got homelessness problem here too. Easily more than 10,000 people living in their cars. Don't know how many people just living not in their cars, not in a house. Western society has this frightening situation of single men past middle age who are depressed. Sorry, men past middle age, who are classified as chronically depressed. An incredible percentage. I mean, I believe it's more than half. I think it's something like 60 or 70%. It's men that need rescuing in this society, not women now. Well, perhaps everyone needs rescuing. We all need rescuing from our society. Perhaps the society needs to be changed. I don't know. Well, I do know about that. Yeah, well, let's leave that one as well. So, our needs are not being met by our ability to control our society, whether that ability is true, there or not, valid or not. It's not doing it at the minute. Our true needs, a great part of them, if you like, is not material. In the absence of understanding and experience, we might turn to reason, but reason upon lack of experience and understanding is troublesome and problematic, to say the least, not at all reliable. And what we need is something else, and that is imagination and hope and the volition the incentive, the faith, the trust to pursue that hope, test the waters and see if we're right or wrong. It's an extremely pragmatic approach, but it's the one man uses in his politics, in his family, in his career, in every decision he makes, even in finding his God. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you so much.